why we have this fear of saying no.
We want to be in community. We want to be liked. We want to be seen. We want to be known. And so then it's just this instant like, oh, I have to say yes, because if I don't, they're not going to ask me again.
The human brain,
fully developed by 25.
But for someone whose brain hasn't been fully developed, how can they be aware of all of these?
That's where great mentors come into play, to where you can be like, hey, I was invited to this. Can I bounce this idea off you? Obviously, you can have that in a therapy room conversation. Taking the pause allows you to reflect, and then it gives you the opportunity, if you can in that moment, to either come out and say yes and feel good about that, come out and say no. And again, no is a complete sentence, so you don't have to go into a full explanation. You can, but also a lot of the times that's for their approval or for their understanding. And so can you say no without an explanation? But then the third is, I don't know yet. Let me look at my calendar. Let me see what I can do, and I'll get back to you. And just make sure that if you want to honor the people in your life, you do follow back up. Even if it's a no, but it's being able to say, if I say I'm going to follow back up with you, I will, because that matters.
Is there a difference between an identity, someone's identity, and their core values?
Your identity is based on the different roles that you have that you play, and you don't want to over-identify with one role. And then core values play into that.
You know, today I want to just kind of dive into this, why we're afraid of saying no. And in your experience, why do you think we have them within us?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it is people pleasing. I think a big part of it is we want to control how we're being perceived. We don't want to be seen as unhelpful, uncool, unkind. And so then it's, I can't forego, whatever reasons I might give. I need to say yes.
Right. And I know we talk about, just as a society, everyone talks about people pleasing. And I want to define that, because I think back then I wasn't necessarily people pleasing, because they came to me. I was like, hey, this guy, maybe the brand that someone created in their head, I was trying to continue that brand.
Sure.
But like, what exactly is people pleasing?
Yeah.
And then how does that look like, for example? Maybe not my example, maybe another example that you may know of.
Sure. It's where you take the other person's opinion about you above what makes sense for you. So, trying to think of an example outside of the ones. It's so easy when you give your own.
I know, right? Hey, you know what? Feel free to use mine. I give you that agency.
Yeah. So it's, you're putting someone else's thoughts and what they need or what they're getting out of an experience above your own. And that's what matters to you. And when you do that for too long, you do lose your identity, because you don't stand on anything. It's just what other people need and want. It trumps what you want.
Wow. That's actually a big problem. As you say identity, I'm gonna say, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Because I feel like I've lived so many different lives, and then now that I'm like much older, I'm just like, that has nothing to do with me, even though they played a very important role in who I am today. But it's like I feel like I've put my identity in all those things for so long that I felt like I had to participate in that. And like today, like how does that look like, just for people in general? And I know I'm creating a big blanket, but I want to put language around that, because we talked about people pleasing, and now we're talking about identity, even though the conversation started of like saying no.
Yeah.
Why people have the fear of saying no. How does those three different areas tie together? Because you were losing your identity, you were losing the ability to say no, and now you were people pleasing in the process. That's exhausting.
Yeah, it is exhausting. And honestly, I think it's because we fear rejection.
Another term, rejection. Oh my God. It's like everything. I feel like next will be shame. Like where does shame plays into this? So I kind of want to like break these four areas now down, which I added shame. First I have issues of saying no. And now I've developed the, people pleasing aspect. I need to please everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm not allowed to say no. And then now you have, which I forgot. Which
the
one?
lack of identity.
The lack of identity, which is huge. And then now the shame comes into when you don't meet these three things, now you're ashamed.
Yeah.
But like, I know we've defined people pleasing aspect, and then the art of saying no itself. But like, let's go into identity. How does that look like? And what are you giving up? Yeah.
So let's say someone approaches you, asks you to do something. You don't put any thought behind it. You probably whether you have time for it or not, and you say yes. The idea of saying yes is because if I don't, I won't be invited to things anymore, is your assumption. Or people won't see me as, some of the things I described earlier. Or I will no longer be seen as this person's friend or whatever in their life. And so it's, again, putting all of what their simple even question, whether it was a big question or not, is you're putting your identity and stakes into what they're asking of you. And if you don't say yes, then what you'll be missing out on.
Right. Wow. So just the social element of it, that's what you're missing out.
Yeah.
But like,
or just
why do
even
we have the
inclusion.
need to that? Is it like rooted into who we are as humans being? We are social creatures.
Yeah. And
we
we
need that.
Yeah, we want to be in community. We want to be liked. We want to be seen. We want to be known. And so then it's just this instant like, oh, I have to say yes, because if I don't, they're not going to ask me again.
Right. And also I did talk about it, that being very exhausting. And I think that's what we're seeing today. I feel like for so long, we've all been trying to participate in those 4 areas and make sure we don't fail at it. And now we're seeing a society where we're so divided, because I feel like there's one side who's like, I'm done with all of this. And there's one side who's like, I kind of am, but I know we need this. You hear people saying, destroy everything. And then someone say, well, let's maintain it. And I feel like we're feeling that fatigue as a society, even though those 4 areas are important, I think, to maintain a healthy society.
Sure.
But like, how does the healthy version of that looks like? I know everyone says say no nowadays, but that say no can also have a very extreme effect. If you say no to everything, and there has to be some yes in like achieving, something in life.
Yeah.
But then you find yourself in a rat race very easily, and you start participating in all those in those other areas that we've mentioned here. But like, what does a healthy version of that looks like? Being able to say yes to the right things, but not say no to everything.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're not people pleasing, and then the identity aspect of it.
Yeah. I would say if you don't know immediately in the moment whether your intention is I have to say yes because they won't invite me to anything anymore, or I have to say no because everyone tells me I need to say no and I'm too busy. So like if there's not an instinctive response, I like to say, that's a really great ask. Let me sit on that for a day or two and kind of see if I can make sense of it, and then I'll get back to you with my answer. And so it's this delayed response to then give you the ability to be like, okay, do I have time for this? Does this fit in the sense of like values that I want to live by? Like, is it hitting any of my core values to where even if I don't have time, is it incredibly meaningful to me? And then also like the people that it serves or whatever it is that you're saying yes to, like, does that matter to you? And so if you can hit some of those boxes, then you can go to, oh yeah, I think I can make sense of this and I want to do it. And it's not because it's based out of a fear of rejection or a fear of being left out or whatever, but it's, I can see how it benefit me, and I can see how it benefit like the people I'm saying yes to, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it makes sense. And I remember like reading this stat that says that, I'm trying not to butcher it, but I'm just gonna just kind of say what I remember. I think they said the human brain starts developing at 27. Is that true?
Fully developed by 25.
By 25. There you go. You see, I knew I was going to butcher it. But for someone whose brain hasn't been fully developed, how can they be aware of all of these things that we're talking about? The reason why they should say yes to something and no to something. I know a lot of us during our younger ages, under 25, we find ourselves where we're, afraid of losing that social credit.
Sure.
And we're pressured into participating in everything. And we're afraid of saying no because people are telling us fail often. Like, but how the hell do you fail often? I hear, I think like Will Smith coined that, fail often. And he said it so beautifully. But then when you dissect it, you're like, okay, well, like, how does that look like? Do I intentionally go and fail? Do I go and say yes to the wrong things because I was told by this figure that I need to fail more, and they didn't explain what that looks like?
Sure.
So I kind of want to address that audience of people that are like, not like in a condescending way, like your brain hasn't developed, you need to hear this.
Yeah.
But like in a genuine, like, hey, like we've all lived in this era and we've learned from it. We made a bunch of mistakes. This is what you need to be aware of. These are the language. This is how you should not be shameful of not being able to participate in XYZ, which is hard because I know probably I fell into that category of people that are saying yes to everything because I want to be cool.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where great mentors come into play, to where you can be like, hey, I was invited to this. Can I bounce this idea off you?
Okay.
And I obviously, if you have parents in your life that are still, influential, you could bounce that just like a mentor would. Obviously, you can have that in a therapy room conversation. And then also it goes to like, if you're young and your responsibilities are lower than they would be in 20 years and you can say yes, like maybe you do, right? Because it is a time where you explore more, find different pieces of yourself that you didn't know were there, because you have to try new things to discover that.
Right. Huh. It sounds so beautiful, but then for me, exactly. Me growing up, I didn't find safety in the people around me. So I just kept quiet. That's why I developed a stutter, which we've talked about here so many times. But it's like, and you've mentioned finding a mentor. Like, how do you find someone, who is not, who has the psychological safety for you as a child, and then being able to bounce ideas off of him? Like, hey, someone invited me to go to Texas in the middle of the night. Should I do this?
Yeah.
Is this a great idea?
Right.
I didn't have any guidance, so I said yes.
Yeah.
Because again, to me, that sounded cool.
Sure.
They had a cool school bus that they customized into a house. And it was disgusting, but I went anyway. It was the grossest trip I've ever took. But now I can talk about it and laugh about it. But then I wish someone had told me not to do that. Sure. But I was in a position where I don't know. I honestly cannot tell. I feel like I was a very good kid. Growing up, I'm prone to listen to people. It's kind of like something that was grinded into me or beaten into me to listen to older people. But I feel like I probably would have listened. But let's say someone who is finding themselves in a situation where they're doing all these extreme things but they don't have anyone to bounce an idea off of. Like, where do you go from there? Yeah.
Natural places to find mentors are where someone who might be in a little bit further stage of life of you, that there's some sort of connection. So, it could be a teacher, a coach. It could be whether in a church community, someone who's on staff or a volunteer. Or it could even be like, let's say you're in a rock climbing and you go to the same gym all the time and there's an older person whom you've climbed next to. And it can feel awkward, but can it be like, hey, I have seen you around here. It seems like you love this, know what you're doing. And then just kind of develop that relationship over time.
Right.
And just say things come up in my life. I live away from my family, or my family's no longer in my life, or whatever. It'd be really awesome if I could, send a text or bounce an idea off of you, something like that. And obviously you don't want to do that the first time you meet somebody, but it would be these natural places where you notice that people who are a little bit further along that you could kind of develop that connection with.
Right. I know sometimes it's so hard to find those individuals. So thank you for sharing how to go about that. Something that you mentioned when it comes to saying no was pausing. This is something that I actually just remembered, sharing this with Mercy, my son. I was telling him to take a deep breath whenever he wants to say something, because his natural instinct is no. It doesn't matter. Hey, Mercy, no. He just says no to everything before you can say anything, which I think that was my way of trying to teach him to always have a voice. But he's a child, so he chooses no because it's easier. He doesn't want to do it.
Sure.
But how do you go about sharing that with someone when they find themselves in a situation where they have to make a decision? And they're more likely to lean to that, let's do it, without even thinking about the impact, the consequences. But how can someone go about that? And again, these are the people that are under the 25 that are more likely to say no. Say yes instead of saying no.
Yeah. I think it goes back to, have you identified your core values? Because if you have identified your core values, I think you could do a quick mental check of, does this fit any of what I want? Obviously, when you're young, you have more ability to be impulsive and to make decisions that you can be more spontaneous,
right.
Which is fine. But also, if you know, for you, going across the country with some strangers, again, looking back on it, be that may not have been the most wisest decision I ever made. But also, if you would have had this core value kind of list in your head and you would have checked it of oh, I love doing new things, or I love meeting interesting people, that might have been a yes.
Right.
But if it had been it didn't hit core values, you might be actually, that sounds cool, but I think I'm good.
Right.
But I think maybe you could compare a quick kind of list in your head if you have to make a decision on the fly or feel kind of forced to make a decision in the moment.
Right.
You could do that quick mental checklist.
Interesting. And you know, you like touched on identity, and now you're talking about core values. Is there a difference between someone's identity, and their core values?
So it's part of their identity. So your identity is based on the different roles that you have that you play, and you don't want to over-identify with one role. So, you know, you being in film, like if all of a sudden that ability went away and you put all of your identity in that, then you wouldn't know who you were outside of that role. So even though you're a dad and a husband and a friend and an entrepreneur and all those things. And so it's being able to balance all the different roles, and then core values play into that.
Wow. Okay. So the core value is what ties all of those things together,
and kind of like how you prioritize your time.
Gotcha. So it's like if I am a dad, not if, but as a dad, how do I navigate all of these things to make sure that they're not taken away from what's important in life?
Yes.
So those are the core values.
Yeah. So let's say that you verbally said, I have a core value of being family oriented, but you spent only 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock every night at home. And that was the only hour you were at home every night. Are you living in your core value? Gotcha.
Wow. Okay. It seems like I had a little bit of a different understanding of core values. Now I'm hearing that I'm attaching my identity, things that I identify with as a core value. But, you know, it's like, no, a core value is something deep within who I am. And then all these things that I do, and how do I go about, prioritizing all those different things.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you make sure that your identity doesn't become your core value? Because I know that happens very often. You know, I hear people would talk about things that they do as, this is what I believe, this is who I am. But it's just a thing that they do. Like, you could lose that anytime.
Yeah.
Something could happen and you can never do that again.
Sure.
But if you call that your core value, then you can get lost. And this happens in the nonprofit world a lot. A lot of people are like, this is who I am. Like, it's more than their identity. They believe so much into it, which we've talked on here on the episode of impact and like results. We kind of dissect into that. But like, how do you make sure that your identity doesn't become your core value?
It might even be part of the language. Like, I mean, I love that people want to identify so strongly with that, but I think you're right. Like, life can throw you a curveball, and what happens if that's no longer part of what you're doing every day? How do you still exist within your best self? And so can you shift the language from, this is just who I am, this is just what I do, to like, this is a mission that I love giving my life to. But also I have, all these other components in my life that matter, or whatever. But it might just be just shifting how they talk about it. Because the more that you say that, the more that you over-identify, and it just kind of validates that, which can get to a really dangerous place. Yeah,
because to me, the way that I see it is like, for example, this is my core value right here. And then I am Abraham, like Mercy's father is like a very important aspect of that, and Caesar's father and Shanna's husband. So it's like all those three things. I make sure that I prioritize that. However, the film that I do is just something that I happen to do, but it doesn't define how I treat these things.
Right.
And then so on, like all the other areas that I work in, I make sure that they don't overpower or like take over that.
Yeah.
But then in that example, where is Abraham?
So you're actually the center.
Okay.
So Abraham is the center. So you're in the middle, and then you have, and like if you remember way back in elementary school when you would like do like the map where it was like the spider, like you would have a circle in the middle and you'd branch off and you'd have a circle on this side and a circle on this side. So like, so your name is in the middle, and then your dad, your role as a dad is this one. And then your role as a husband is coming off this side. And your role as a filmmaker, and your role as an entrepreneur, and your role as a best friend, your role as a son. So all of those come off of your core center. Gotcha. And then the core values of how I see connected to that are like floating inside your circle with you, but they're not like, they don't take away from you. They're just things that you want to prioritize. Like, so for me, like one of my core values is humor. And the reason why one of my core values is humor is because being a counselor, I hear heavy, horrible, sad things all day long. But generally, there's at least one point in each of my sessions where I get them to smile or laugh. And it's not to make light of what's happening, but it's also to recognize that we can have and sit in heavy stuff, but also like you're going to leave here and go live your life.
Right.
And we don't have to stay stuck in this. And then I know like with my friends and family, like we joke around a lot because for me, humor is core to my personality. And if I can't joke with you, I'm probably not that close to you. And so it's like, so for me, humor is enmeshed in Crystal because you'll know that if Crystal can't joke around with you, then like something's off.
Yeah.
And so anyway, like that's like a part of just who I am and how I operate. And so those core values are kind of located in the circle with me, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's very detailed. Now I'm thinking, what is my core value?
Yeah. And there's a really cool exercise that I do with people who are discovering this, of where you kind of have this long list of values and you sit over it and what are the top 10 that kind of speak to you.
Right.
So then write down the top 10, come back to it the next day and narrow it to 5.
Right.
And then look and say like, okay, why are these the top? And then you can even go to 3 if you want, but top 3 to 5 values. Because like, I mean, everyone, oh yeah, I'm all about integrity. I'm all about honesty. I'm all about love. I'm all about family. I'm all about security or whatever. And those are great, but like, why?
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Wow. That's a deep psychological question. It's like, yeah, because and then as we're talking, I'm thinking, am I identifying with being patient? Because everything I did that I just showed you in that scenario, I need to be so patient in order to navigate all that. But then I fall into that like, okay, well, like what makes Abraham want to be patient and do all of this? Because you can lose all of that. Then what exactly am I left with? And to your point, like humor, it's like part of that core value.
Yeah.
And I honestly cannot say what exactly is that core value for me. But I don't know, after all the discussion we've had there, have you able to picture something as a counselor? Maybe you see something that I lean on as a core value, just based on the conversation that we've had.
Yeah, I mean, I think justice is big for you.
Oh, okay.
And I think obviously you have poured a lot into mental health, but in a broad aspect of kind of hearing people's stories. And I think that's where like the film piece comes in too.
Okay.
And so kind of maybe not that having a voice is a core value, but there's probably something that's linked to that that is a better word that's probably not coming to me. But like giving someone a platform for that.
Gotcha. Okay. No, yeah, I can see that, because I feel like my entire life has been just me trying to speak up for myself. And then being able to do that, and now it's like trying to learn how to do that for other people. So I think that's a core value. So even if I were to lose all of those things that I mentioned that are core in my life, at the end of the day, I know I'm always going to be seeking the justice element, that that drive to want to create something for people to speak off of. So I think, yeah. So thank you for that, helping me identify that. But like, how can a normal individual identify that? Let's say we can create a character. Let's say this person is a filmmaker, and they work in Hollywood. They work for Marvel. And
we're creating a person here, right?
Yeah, we're creating a person. I'm not very creative when it comes to it. But let's say they're doing all these things in the film space, and they went from being a regular producer to now becoming an executive producer, which is like the pinnacle of film, where you become the executive producer, and next you become the studio head. Everyone wants to do that, but no one wants to do it because it's very stressful. Yeah. Now you have to manage everything from budget to production to post-production, a lot of work. So let's say you find yourself in that position. Now you're creating all those different identities. And now let's say this person lost all of that. And now they're completely lost because they've ride that wave for so long that they don't know who they are anymore. This is something that happened to me. If people listening and watching don't know where I'm coming from. But yeah, so let's say you find yourself in that position. What do you do?
So it goes to, okay, so yes, you lost the role. But if you go back to your core values, like what matters most to you? So let's say it's the storytelling piece. Like let's say that I didn't feel like I had a voice growing up. I finally discovered mine, and now I want to be a part of making sure that other voices are heard. I can't do it in this role anymore. So how do I take that same element and go find it in a different role? Or like, I'm a husband or I'm a father. How do I incorporate storytelling and having their voice be heard in those roles to where I can still be connected to that purpose?
Right. Huh. And like one more thing that I guess now I'm going back to myself because I have to that the example was me, guys. But
Shocking.
you know, one of the things that I did, you know, after losing the position, I started saying yes to everything. Like I was working in pest control sometimes because I was like, I don't know who I am. And I started picking up, you know, like soccer, you know, like responsibility. I became a coach for this small team.
Yeah.
And then I was participating. I was just in that. I did everything because I'm like, all right, I just need to find what I'm good at, even though I was good at all these things. But I think after I lost that, my identity went with that. And it was really hard to actually realize, no, not really. This was just something that I did.
Yeah.
So it took me a very long time to like tap like, oh, wait, I can just keep doing this because I went into film because I wanted to tell stories, but I got lost in the whole luxury of film and the fun and the cool things that comes with it. But let's say, now I forgot my chain of thought. Do you remember where I was going with this?
So you were saying yes to everything.
Yeah, saying yes to everything. Again, I did pest control. I was a coach. I worked at a restaurant because I wanted to learn how to cook and eat healthy. Because I felt like I got so sick from the film industry. I realized I was eating all these things. So I was saying yes to basically everything. Like let's say let's go back to me going through that. Like if you were to meet me back then and you notice all that, what would be an advice that can help me shake out of that?
Yeah. So I think it would be going about like, let's write out and discover what are those core values and is there a way, not in this role, but that you can stay in line with them. But then also, I mean, when you lose a significant role in your identity, it is going to be a little bit more about self-discovery. And so it's maybe saying yes to everything was your way of channeling the next right thing.
Right.
And I don't know if you would have gotten there if you would have said no to all those things.
Oh yeah, I probably would have gone deeper and deeper and deeper into darkness. But I feel like I needed to say yes to everything, even though it was the most, like, especially the pest control. I'm saying that over and over again. I need you guys to understand. I did pest control where I walk around spraying. I hate bugs, but I did it anyway because I felt like I needed to like go back and humble myself all the way to a point that I can relearn who I am.
Sure.
Because I was genuinely lost and I had so much insecurities. I had to like go back to the basic, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And then back then my friend owned a pest control company and he was like, what are you doing? Like, I was like, I don't know, man. And he was like, do you just want to come work with us and figure life out? And I was like, sure. Yeah, whatever. And I I did that. I said sure to everything back then. It was just sure. But then it turned out to be the best experience I've ever had because I'm not only going into to like do pest control. The requirement of the job was that you had to go in and explain to the homeowner why you were doing what you're doing. Because usually they're freaking out when you walk into the house. They don't care whether you had a stutter. They just want help. Yeah. People hate bugs. They hate spiders, like and ants. And for some reason, over the years of doing that, I kind of got used to it, that it doesn't bother me. So when I walk in, I can see the relief. The people are happy. And somehow I felt like that brought me back to like, the need to want to give, platform someone or help them or figure something out. Yeah. So I think I found that through that job because I was going spraying, but then I'll explain and break the process down. And then I'll tell them why this is important, what not to do, what to do. Yeah. Next time, don't leave your food out here for overnight, man. Make sure you clean your counters and not leave crumbs everywhere. The ants are going to ant. They've been here longer than you. Right. So I feel like that process gave me so much peace and clarity in order for me to be where I am today and the patient that I've been mentioning. But like let's say in that position I didn't say yes to that. Mm-hmm. Like I guess let's just have fun and try to go down that route of like let's say Mitch back then was like, hey, come do this, and I said no. Mm-hmm. Like what would that look like, the worst case scenario of someone who lost their identity and saying no to everything? Well,
I think what you're describing is you found where you have value again. There's two sides. I talk to people who they have everything. Looks like they have everything. They have quote unquote the perfect job, the perfect marriage, the perfect house, the perfect 2.5 kids and white picket fence and whatever, right? And then they come and they're like, but why am I still so dissatisfied? And a lot of the times it's because they're over identifying with an area, or they've been in an area, let's say career wise, and they're no longer challenged and they're bored.
Right.
And so then they, whatever, but it's like a lot of it comes to like, where are you putting your identity and where are you finding your value? And so
Right.
I love having those conversations. But then on the flip side, there's people who have isolated themselves, and it could be because they did get into a rut of like, I have to say no because I'm too busy and I don't have capacity, or I don't want to. And then they've lost out on some relationships, or, you know, their day looks pretty similar and they're just not engaged. And so it's like, okay, well, where are you saying yes to where you're connecting to people and to things that you want to do?
Right.
And then it's challenging them to be like, okay, maybe you don't want to go back to what you were before, but how do you find the balance? Because what you're doing now isn't working.
Right. Huh, I like that. Because it like reminded me of a book that I decided that I'm gonna write. I don't know how long it's gonna take me, but like all the conversation that I've been having, it's like I've noticed three things. This is just my own limited understanding, but I noticed that especially to this conversation specific, people say yes to everything because they lack clarity. Also, they lack the ability to communicate, and then also they lack the ability to understand capacity. So I call it the 3 C's to life.
Nice.
Hopefully someone doesn't steal this, but it's something that I literally just started writing because again, back to this conversation of like, I feel like those 3 areas are very paramount in someone understanding when to say no and when to say yes. And I want to hear from your own, experience as a therapist. When it comes to those 3 C's, like, what do you have to say about that when it comes to clarity, communication, and then also capacity?
Yeah.
See, I always forgot.
I mean, I think that sounds like a great framework.
Okay.
For sure. It goes back to, do you need that in the moment? Like, do you need to kind of have this framework in your head already to where you have to respond immediately, yes or no? Or is it something where it's like, let me run it through my framework and come back to you? But I think, those are great questions to consider for sure.
Well, thank you for that, stamp of approval. Because it's like, I notice these are things that I also struggle with, pretty much my whole life. I like clarity for a very long time. I did so many things because I didn't know why I needed to do them. And then I didn't know how to communicate effectively as to like how to even talk about the things that I'm doing. And then last thing, I never knew when I ran out of capacity.
Yeah.
But then I'm always burnt out. I'm always depleted. And the more that I understand that, the more I'm just like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm always clear with people. Like, am I able to do this? Do I have the language to tell them why I'm not doing it?
Yeah.
And lastly, if I'm not able to do it, do I have the language to explain why, capacity wise, I can't do this?
Yeah.
Because I think that saves relationships and just anything in general when it comes to participating in society.
For sure.
And we're getting to the end of this, and then I do want to go into like repair. Let's say you find yourself into the example that we've started with, which is the always saying yes, and now you lack clarity and you're not happy that you were doing all these things, and you find yourself like, well, you don't even know you were people pleasing, but you're already in that already. And now you were dealing with what's the other one? I keep forgetting this. We have the oh my God.
Identity?
Identity.
Yeah.
But then your identity is already rooted into all that. And then now you're ashamed of walking away from something that you already committed to by saying yes. But now you're too deep into it.
Sure.
Like, how do you go about getting out of it? Not even getting out, but like communicating as effectively as you can in order to repair that relationship.
Yeah. I think maybe this is where clarity comes into play, is like approaching whoever, if there's someone in charge, or I don't know who's leading initiative or whatever, and saying, hey, when I said yes to this is kind of what I was thinking, and this is what it's blossomed into. And I no longer have the ability to go into it that deeply. And so then it's like, how can I want to respect my commitment, but how do I do that without like compromising these things over here? And so how do I maybe slowly fade out?
Right.
But I think honestly, it's just having hard conversations.
Right. Yeah. I feel like there's a book called Having Hard Conversation, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. But like, as we close out, I want to, go back to the pause because I think that's very important. Can you just wrap up this conversation as to why taking a pause is important in this journey of like, learning how to say no and when to say yes?
Yeah, I think taking the pause allows you to reflect. And then it gives you the opportunity, if you can in that moment, to either come out and say yes and feel good about that, come out and say no. And again, no is a complete sentence. So you don't have to go into a full explanation. You can, but also a lot of the times that's for their approval or for their understanding. And so can you say no without an explanation? But then the third is, I don't know yet. Let me look at my calendar. Let me see what I can do, and I'll get back to you. And just make sure that if you want to honor the people in your life, you do follow back up, even if it's a no. But it's being able to say, if I say I'm going to follow back up with you, I will, because that matters.
Yeah, it does. For me right now, I just say, you know what? I'm going to check in with my wife real quick, and then I'll get back to you in the near future.
Yeah.
I need to probably stop saying that because I say it so many times at this point. But I'm now making sure that I can apply those 3 C's that I mentioned, and just make it a habit, where I make sure that I'm very clear as to why I'm saying no, and then communicate that. And if there's a reason why, and I also make sure that I explain that. Is there anything that you want to add before we close out?
No, I think that was a good ending.
Okay. Well, again, thank you again for being here. This is also probably one of my favorite conversations because the amount of things I say yes to, I'm not even sharing some of them because I'm genuinely embarrassed to talk about some of the things that I did. It's just insane. So I'm not going to get into that. That's just too much for the podcast. But anyway, again, thank you for being here. This has been fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.